Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about a brand new Netflix original Korean movie, specifically South Korea I believe, which was titled Badland Hunters. Now I think I read online that this was actually a movie that's related to another movie or something like that, or another franchise or something like that, and this is supposed to be like a spin-off, or I'm not even 100% sure, but I only seen this movie as, on its own. I didn't see anything else in this franchise and whatnot. But essentially, this movie is kind of put me in mind of almost like a Mad Max kind of post-apocalyptic type world, and actually even put me in mind of the video game Badlands a little bit in that sense. And honestly, the movie in terms of the action is pretty darn cool. We got some great actors in here. Dong-seok, I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of those names right, so I apologize if I'm not. But he portrays a character known as Namsan, and he is just a phenomenal fighter in this world, in this post-apocalyptic world. And so essentially what happens is, what the story is really about is that there's this sort of like this Frankenstein kind of doctor who is not necessarily trying to resurrect the dead, but he is sort of trying to extend life by making our bodies less reliant on the essential things in life, like food, water, and all these things. And he's doing it by what appears different types of DNA, kind of like splicing different DNA, or from what I can tell, different animal DNA, that types of things, especially things like alligators or reptilian type animals, or whatever the case is. And so, and so when we're introduced to all the main characters in the movie, one of the main characters is a character known as Han Suna, or Suna they call her, and so she is someone who knows Namsan and also knows another main character known as Ji-wan, and so she ends up getting abducted by this doctor, because this doctor specifically is targeting children. He's doing a bunch of these crazy experiments on the children because, I guess from his perspective, he's saying they are the future. They are, they are the future of humanity. They will produce the next genealogy of people, the next generations, and so I'm guessing that's why he's targeting them. And plus, they're younger, stronger, and so they're, they would naturally probably live longer than the adults, anyways. And so he's doing all these crazy experiments on the children, trying to make them sort of become like this new version of humanity, this spliced type of humanity. And he actually ends up having this army, or these types of guards, which are sort of like militia or military type people, and he already has manipulated their DNA to the point where it's very difficult to actually kill them. They're not, I wouldn't go as far as saying they're not like zombies, but they are kind of like zombies, but they can be killed. But they're very highly trained, very highly decorative soldiers, and even martial artists in some cases. They're really good at fighting. And so this doctor has himself isolated into his own little section here in this post-apocalyptic world, and he's guarded by all these basically super soldiers who are very difficult to kill. And so once he ends up kidnapping Suna, then of course it becomes Namsan and Yi-wan's job to get her back. And so along the way, we're introduced to a couple other characters as well who are really good fighters. Eun-ho, I believe was her name. She's a great fighter, and she ends up joining forces with Namsan and those characters, and they basically go on to this major rescue mission to save Suna, Han Suna. And so that is basically in a nutshell what this whole movie is about. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, and so a young female child ends up getting abducted, and so all of her friends, especially the fighters, the warriors, the defenders, so to speak, they get together to go on this rescue mission and to infiltrate this crazy base where this crazy scientist is, to rescue her. And that, in a nutshell, is the story. Now, in terms of how they sort of execute the story, it's a very simple story. There's nothing crazy. This is not going to win awards for best picture of the world, or best storytelling, or best writing, or anything like that. But what I will say is that this movie is very entertaining. This is a very brutal, very gory, like body parts flying off, like heads coming off. It's a very brutal, gory action movie, and it has a lot of really good hand-to-hand combat, especially from Namsan. He's a bigger guy too. When you look at him, you wouldn't think that he would be able to move the way that he's able to move, but he does, and he just rips through a lot of these military guys, and so do the other characters as well. He's not the only really good character or good fighting character. He's, there's a few characters in this movie that are just like pedal to the metal, crazy with hand-to-hand combat, martial artists, and also even good with weaponry. They're really good at shooting and whatnot, very good with sharpshooting and all that kind of stuff. And so even though the story of the movie is not really all that entertaining, the violence is. Now, if I was going to nitpick this movie, I would say that you could have probably shaved 10 or 15 minutes off this movie, because, like I said, when the action sequences are there, it's there. Like, this movie is not boring when the action kicks in, but in between the action scenes, I found, like, specifically, like, in the second act, sort of leading into the third act, so to speak, when you get to that, climactic part of the movie, I did feel like, before they infiltrated the base, I did feel like there was a little bit of a gap, like, maybe too much of a gap, with no action sequences. And I understand they wanted to flesh out the characters. They want to sort of build up this world and tell the story of the characters who are involved and whatnot. But for me, I just felt like there was a lot of it that I just didn't really care about. I didn't really care a whole lot about the scientists or about this, place that he was building. I just really, honestly, once I seen Nam-san start to fight, I just really wanted to see him go in and rip through the base. And fortunately, the movie does give you that, it does not hold back. They do allow their characters to just like unleash havoc, and there's just so many kills in this movie. They just rip through so many people. It's crazy, but it's so satisfying to watch it in this world that they've built. Like I said, this is very much like a Mad Max post-apocalyptic world, and I loved the action. So if I were to put a number on this movie, I think I'd probably give this movie like either like, basing it only as an action movie, I would give this like a 70% because of the action. But if we're going to be honest about it and look at the story, then really it's probably only like a 60% because there really is not really a whole lot of story in it to begin with. So I'm going to take an average, and I'm going to give this movie a 65% because the action to me was worth watching this movie. It was just so crazy, so brutal, and just so hands-on that it was super entertaining, and I was able to look past the fact that there wasn't really all that compelling of a story. The characters were interesting, and the action was interesting, and so that was enough for me. And so with that being said, folks, that's my review of Badland Hunters. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.